The 80-20 principle is most often applied to productivity and success. But in this class, we are going to be applying it to your happiness. This class will be focused on figuring out what you want your days and what you want your weeks to look like. This activity is really helpful if you are at a point where you want more joy in your life, you want a little bit more happiness in your days, and you want to be spending your time with intention. The 80-20 rule states that 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. For example, 80% of your relationship frustrations come from 20% of your problems. 80% of your time wasted comes from 20% of your distractions. 80% of your income comes from 20% of your products. This activity is all about focusing on the 20% of experiences that bring you the most happiness in your life and the 20% of experiences that bring you the most negativity in your life. And we're going to be doing that by looking at how you've spent your time in the past year. The best way to start out this activity that I've found is to open up all of your records of the past 6 months to 1 year. So that might include your calendar, it could include your journal, your diary, your planner, your social media feeds, or anywhere else where you might have recorded your life on a day-to-day basis. In front of you in your workbook, you're going to have 2 columns. You've got the positive and you have the negative. What you want to do as you are scrolling through your camera history or your social media feeds is to start slotting your experiences in the past 6 months to 1 year in both of those columns. So maybe going paddleboarding with Jade was a massive positive, and maybe going on a night out with your work people was a massive negative. If you have some neutral experiences in there where you're not really feeling one way or another towards them, don't worry about them too much unless they are something that you want to reduce in your life, in which case slot them into the negative column. From doing this activity, you might start to see some serious patterns. I know that the first few times that I did this, I certainly did. You want to identify those patterns and you want to write them down. A few patterns that I have noticed when I've gone through this 80-20 activity myself are that I really dislike the cold. Most of my experiences with a significant amount of cold were in my negative column. I also noticed that nature was a big part of my peak happiness moments, and that drinking was a big part of my peak negative moments. So the patterns that you have noticed in your negative column, they turn into not to do's, and the patterns that you've noticed in your positive column turn into to do more ofs. What I would recommend is after you have done your 80-20 analysis, you've written out your patterns, is to start messaging friends and making time to do those positive things in your life. This activity was actually inspired by Tim Ferriss, and he says, it's not enough to just remove the negative. That just creates a void. Get the positive things on the calendar ASAP, lest they get crowded out by the noise that will otherwise fill your days. The next part of this is repeating the same process, but you're zooming in and you're focusing on your everyday habits, behaviors, activities, and commitments. Once again, if they are neutral and necessary, they don't need to be placed anywhere. If they're neutral but you want less of them in your life, they can be placed in the negative column. So in my positive column, I have small everyday habits like doing a daily tidy, drinking a big bottle of water in the morning, taking my vitamins. I also have bigger activities that tend to slip their way into my weeks. So going rock climbing, going on walks with friends. In my negative column, I've got those little habits that sneak into my days, like watching a little too much Netflix, binging a little too much TikTok, staying up late. You might have bigger weekly commitments, so maybe even going to a social function you've dedicated yourself to every week just isn't bringing you joy anymore. Similar to the previous 80-20, you want to go ahead and look for any patterns. So for me, I noticed screen time was a really big pattern in my negative column. The more screen time I tend to have in my weeks, the less happy I am and the less fulfilled I feel. You could notice that all of the things in your positive column are actually directly related to being connected with another human being. And that's good. That gives you an indication of what different things you need to start planning in your week and what you need to fill your weeks with more of. So this was an activity that was all about reflection and getting clarity on what you want your days and your weeks to look like. This isn't about taking a wild amount of radical action. You are not going to change your life after this activity, while it will reveal a lot to you about what you might need to change in your life. But what it will do is enter your subconscious and you'll start subtly working on these problems over time. If you want to take this a step further, you might want to pick 1 or 2 of these things and concentrate on bringing more of them or reducing them in your life. So you might have noticed that screen time was a huge pattern for you. Maybe that is something that you specifically work on for the next 3 months. negatives. Or you might have noticed that nature was a huge pattern in your positives. How can you work that into your weekly planning routine, your weekly tracking routine, or just your life in general?
By doing this exercise, I hope that you'll see creative opportunity out there in the world that you might not normally pay attention to, might not normally expect to see. You know, at home or something, someone opens the cupboard and they're confronted with something, you know, it's kind of fun, right? And this is something that someone's already designed to kind of catch your attention. Half the work's done for you, which you know we like a lot. So how can you re-engage with it? How can you play with that? Marker pens, paint pens, stickers, tape, scissors, paper, those are going to be the tools of our trade for this. All right, let's get started. In fact, I've already, I couldn't wait to do this one, so I've already started. So we've taken a box of cereal. I thought, how can I tweak it in a really subtle way that kind of blends in with the packaging as it is, but changes it a little. Corn is one letter away from scorn. I made some S's. We're going to glue that on with our not very good glue stick. Just obliterate the thing you're going to be gluing, and then carefully peel it off. And of course, you're not trying to trick someone into thinking it's not what it is. Just enough to make them give a second look. We could add some scorn to the chicken, like that. Maybe even give it a little eyeball. There, it's not very happy. So that is a very quick, simple one. Could be a good marketing thing for Kellogg's, Scorn Flakes. But let's see what else we've got in the cupboard. We've got some fluff. So like with fluff, you could, you know, we could change the letters. Fluff could be lots of things. Could be a little eye here, and this could be a little mouth. We could add a little nose, maybe. Maybe it's not as funny, but you know, it's kind of cute. I think that's kind of okay for the fluff. It's kind of cool packaging, even though it's probably poisonous to eat. Hey, here's some chickpeas. So this could be fun, and we could put little faces on the chickpeas. I might dot some eyeballs, although this pen is a bit leaky. It doesn't matter, we'll just leave it like that for now. So we maybe let that dry, but already it's kind of cute. Maybe you want to like play with the actual objects or what's actually what the food is. So we have this strained tomatoes here. So maybe if we turn this tomato into a character, maybe it wouldn't look that happy because it knows what's about to happen to it. Something like this, we could just put some stickers on. That little O looks like a mouth, so we can look at this, 2 stickers. Maybe we could do a little baby one. You could have little speech bubbles coming out of them. So that's another thing. I apologize to design people that made this for what I'm about to do. Does it look like anything else? Maybe I should work in marketing. I don't know. I don't know if there's been a crossover with Pokemon, but when this dries, we can turn it into poker soup or something. Got to catch them all. But anyway, there. If you can tell a little story with the characters or what you're doing, then that's even better. All its tears. There we go. So there's our little tomato soup, or strained tomatoes. Let's see if these chickpeas are dry now, even though I smushed up half the box package. Or not quite, but we're just going to go for it. Apart from this guy, he's got a bit smushed. So there you go. So if you start to see this in the stores following this Skillshare, you'll know where they stole the idea from. But yeah, there you go. Look, that's a lot of fun, right? It's going to make you smile more when you're reaching for your chickpeas. And you can apply this not just to groceries, but to, you know, other stuff that you might buy around the house. See what you can find in the cupboards that you can draw over. So we're going to draw a new body on a piece of paper Then we're going to hold it in front of a person, and then using our cameras or our phones or camera phones, we will take a picture and it will look sort of like the person has got another body. It's a bit like one of those things you might find on the beach or a fairground where you put your face in and you're given a new body. So we just need someone to participate in this exercise. Anyone? Anyone? So here we have a willing participant. So I've drawn a little mermaid sort of body, sort of fish body thing, and I've cut a little bit out. Let's just see what happens. Just going to hold it up. I'm going to close one eye. Going to try and line it up. Oh, but really I'm lining it up on my phone because that's where I'm going to take the picture. If I hold the piece too high, then it doesn't look that integrated. So sometimes it's good to hold it high and then just slowly bring it down until you feel it kind of clicks. The more you make them, you can tweak them. Maybe I should have made this narrower, for example, or cut it deeper, or, you know, maybe I'd color it in gray now that I know the person's wearing a gray top. Let's try another one. Let's try the kind of strong man. Do you want to pull a strong man face? Perfect. All right, that's kind of funny. So I made a little ballerina-y one, and I've added some arms to it. So here we use those little butterfly pins, or whatever they're called. I forgot what they're called. We'll double check what they're called. Maybe look up. All right. So there you go. A reason I really like this exercise is you're only doing half the work. Folding the paper and letting the ink or paint press on the other side completes the drawing. So we only have to do half the work, which is brilliant. So let's get going. Again, we're creating something, but we're not really worrying about too much what it is until later. And it's kind of training our brains to look at things and reevaluate what they might be after the fact. This is super simple. All you really need is some paper and some paint. Any kind of paint. I'm going to be using acrylic paint, and I've watered it down, mixed it together with a brush, and then we're ready to go. First is do the fold at the beginning. We're just going to fold it, don't need to be too careful. There we go. And we're just going to make a blob. Let's do it on the other side. Let's add a little extra blob to it, lots of paint. Don't know what that is, doesn't really matter. Squash it down. Good to make sound effects with your mouth while you're doing it. And then we're going to open it up. Ooh, what is that? I'm not sure. Could be anything. But let it dry and we'll come back to it in a moment. All right, let's do another one. And I guess, you know, like, I guess psychologists, psychiatrists, people that use these kind of things, I guess they try and tap into, you know, your brain will see what it wants to see and will kind of make things it wants to make, and that will reveal something about you. So maybe that will happen when you do this exercise. Let's see. Oh my goodness, it's my mum. Sorry, Mum. I'll tidy my room, I promise. Look at this, she's really angry at this desk. I know that's what I was thinking about. My mum always would say, tidy room, tidy mind, and she would probably freak out if she saw all the clutter and chaos here. But, you know, a little bit of chaos is okay, Mum. Anyway, let's see what your Rorschachs will reveal about you. Should we do one more? What's that, Bergsy? One more. Okay, one more. So let's see. Let's do it this way. See what happens this way. We'll do this bit of red, like that perhaps. Just a little bit of yellow, like that. Don't really know what we're doing, that's fine. Maybe even a little bit of blue. All right, let's squish. Whoa. That's kind of cool. And I might even just tilt this up, let that extra little bit run down. But look at that, look at these nice gradients, little soft colors and things, very nice. We'll let that dry and we'll see what it can be. Keep in mind while you're making this, just having fun. Again, it's exploring what the materials will do, how the paint will react, about the pressure on it. And it's about mark making and shape making without thinking about it, without like worrying about it. Start to combine things, play around with it. This is just a very starting point. It's for you to explore and see how far you can take it. I don't know what this looks like. Let's put a sticker on there. So immediately we've made a little character without even realizing it. You don't have to mirror them, but it kind of looks cool. I might be inclined to add a little nose, perhaps. Or you can just start to elaborate on it. Maybe some teeth. Now they look a little bit evil. Sorry about that. Let's give it some evil eyes like that. I'm not really sure. It kind of looks a bit like a rabbit. You could draw around it. Like that. Like that. There's a little rabbit. I'll give it a fluffy tail. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it's just like a starting point. You might go, wow, this is kind of a cool character. I'm going to redraw that now on another piece of paper. Just something you didn't think of that now it's in front of you and you can work on it. You could combine them. This to me looks a bit like a torso. So we could have that there. We could put my mum on the top like that. Could give her some hands like that. Here we go. Look at this. All right, I'll get in trouble if I say it's my mum. So let's just say it's a person. But look at those yoga pants. I mean, I would wear yoga pants like that. So here we have a little person that we made. A little Rorschach portrait.
So in this exercise, we're going to be talking about cultivating joy. I thought joy was about having fun with my friends, hanging out, being successful in my career, all of the kind of external things. And I didn't realize that a lot of my makeup and my understanding of joy was with the mind frame that it would be brought to me by those in my lives, that there would be people that would make my joy a priority for them. And it was a long journey into realizing that it was my responsibility to make joy something that was important to me. And I don't think we often think about joy that way. We wait for it to happen, we wait for something funny to happen, we wait for someone to bring it to us. But this is a way where we can have this list, and then when things get tough, we can have this to reference back to and begin to bring that joy back into our own lives. So I'm going to be using the list format here. And I find this really easy because, you could just go on and on and on about the things that bring you joy. So for me, I'm going to start with a title before I do my list. So what brings me joy? And the first thing that I always think about is people watching. I think being a New Yorker in general, my God, the things you see when you're walking around, like someone being helped across the street, watching someone, a couple in love, and you can tell they're on their third date and it's still all new and fresh. Like all of those things like really bring me joy, and are just fun to me and help me, remember like the easygoing parts of life and kind of get out of my TV, social media mind frame and just stuck in, the negative parts that are a natural part of life, but that can kind of bring us down. Another thing that brings me a lot of joy is when I wake up the first time my alarm goes off. That is not often, but it really makes me feel like I've prioritized my self-care in a way where I can actually wake up on time. This is another small thing, but when Trader Joe's has eucalyptus, joy. It smells great. I'm going to jack up the spelling, but that's the beauty of journaling. It's just for me. Only every one of you guys and me knows I can't spell eucalyptus. I love fresh flowers. I love when my kids laugh. Like them laughing makes me laugh, and then we just are like three crazy people laughing. I really love really good wine. Preferably red and Malbec. I am from New York, and I've said that a few times, but New York City is just like, as soon as I can see the skyline, I'm like, yes, joy. The ocean. I actually have a meditation app that I listen to, and it brings me a lot of joy hearing that before bed. Memes on social media. Innate joy. Cuomo on CNN. I love his dialogue with Don Lemon before they pass it off. This is how you know I'm like firmly in my 30s. It's hilarious to me. I stay up for that every single night. I'm like finding the joy as I'm doing this. If you don't, it's just like thinking about the things that make you happy. It really changes your mood instantly. So I'm gonna stop here, but I think this is a really good example of how focusing on the little, I mean, these are like really small things that throughout the day, just reflecting back on them remind me of how much joy I get out of the time that I spend focusing on the small things in life. You know, like Trader Joe's, for example, that's during my errand time, but tons of joy from that. Same thing with fresh flowers, kids' laughter, you know, that's a completely free experience. And sometimes I get that even from people watching. So sometimes I circle back and I'm like, oh, wow, that's double joy there. So one of the things that comes up a lot after you finish your joy list is like, that was great, but how can I integrate this into my life? And so I just want to reflect back for a second into the pie chart. And I think finding ways that you can integrate it into your life and be more actionable about it helps you to, again, take back your power and it's an empowering experience. So for me, the Trader Joe's experience is in my errands and I don't really like my errands. Remembering that during that errand time, I'm actually having joyful experiences. So even though I don't enjoy running errands all the time, this is an amazing time for me to be more present to the things that do bring me joy. Another thing is during family time, for me, seeing the places that my joy shows up that I often forget when I look at my day and I'm like overwhelmed by the amount of things that I have going on, remembering all of the joyful things that take place in them. Adulting time often leads to that glass of wine. Lots of joy. The ocean, that's in my downtime. Listening to my meditation app, that also usually comes from adulting in itself. Work leads to more time in New York City, and I love New York, so this is more joy. I think that just being honest about there are parts of these charts that really suck. And that can be draining to our day-to-day lives and our experiences. But trying to change our mind frames to being more present to the places that joy already exists within these helps us to change our mind frames, helps us to get back to this is what actually makes me happy. This is where I actually shine. This is where I feel good. And it doesn't mean acting like these other sucky things don't exist, but we can have both. And that's the important piece, understanding that it can be like sucky by 5 o'clock, but by 5:30, I'm looking at eucalyptus and I'm happy. And so, just bringing that into your experience more and understanding that this is all created by us. There are people that influence it. There are people that come in and out of it, but we are in charge of this experience here. And we're also in charge of bringing this in. So I hope that this was helpful for you to see how you can kind of intersect writing practices and you can take things that you learn from one writing practice and bring more perspective to another. And I mean, this can lead to so many different writing prompts, but I hope that this really helps you to understand and gain more clarity around how journaling is so expansive and we can make it look very different in so many different ways.